there, welcome to another episode of an ongoing series where we basically take the camera anywhere we want to try to find secrets and new discoveries to some of our favorite games. Today we're going to be looking at Sly Cooper, thanks to the camera that was made by Jorts. Jorts has his own YouTube channel, and I'm going to link that down below, and he's made a fantastic camera tool, I will tell you that. So with that all out of the way, let's take a look at what we found. So first I want to hit you hard with content you can't see. Behind Bentley is a book that has legible text, and it reads The Mac by Augie Pagan. Augie Pagan is someone that is actually in the credits of the game, although it doesn't specify exactly what he did, but if you look at his other pieces of work, you can see that he does a lot of art production. So it's very likely that he made this art for this book and put himself in as a Easter egg. And then a very bizarre discovery, inside of one of these huts is a leaf that shouldn't be here, and also it just has a very strange color to it, because I do believe that these leaves are used in other parts of the game, maybe even specifically this world, but they certainly don't have a level of vibrancy that you're seeing here. So whatever happened, it clearly wasn't supposed to happen, because I've heard it's not in the PlayStation 3 versions of the game. And this one's not quite as exciting, but in the area where you have to rescue Carmelita, there is a coin that is hidden out of bounds. Considering it's right next to Carmelita and it triggers a cutscene and everything, there's a good chance that coin has some dev functions attached to it. And next up I want to talk about Sly Cooper models, to which there are many. The first one is right on the title screen. The developers decided to do something a little bit strange and tried to give Sly Cooper some depth to his eyes, so they're protruding out of his mask, and it just looks creepy, I'm gonna be honest. Early PlayStation 2 era, I get it. That being said though, this was an intentional design, and you can see this by taking the camera through the eyeballs, because when you do, you can see that the in-game eyes that are typically used throughout the entire game are still stored underneath these weird cutscene title screen eyes. And then there's this part of the game where Sly uses a water vehicle to light some torches to get one of many keys. And if you take the camera up to this model, whoa, did I say the last eyes were creepy? Because this is even worse. And here's a cool little fact for you. If you take the camera inside of this eye, there is what seems to be the eyelids stored inside of the model. And then there's this cutscene version of Sly that looks fantastic. I can't believe they didn't use this on the title screen, but there's actually a reason behind that. See, this version of Sly is high poly modeled, and to pull that off, or maybe a lack of foresight, this model of Sly Cooper does not have anything going on below the torso. So that's why in any given cutscene you will see just everything from the waist up with this Sly model. And why is this model only from the waist up? Well, we'll get to that in a second. I will explain that. If you take the Sly Cooper model up to the Carmelita model, you can see that Carmelita is towering over Sly Cooper. She's Amazonian in size comparison to our main protagonist. And I don't think this is canonical. I think that in later cutscenes you realize, okay, Carmelita's not supposed to be that big. I think what they did here was that they were trying to make her look bigger so that way she shows up better on old school standard definition televisions, as well as just the fact that she's scaled further away in the distance, and they wanted the details of the character to show up better, as well as have that art that the artist put all that time and effort into actually show up on the screen. Also, if you're looking for any jewelry that might feel like a steal, then you should check out today's sponsor, Holzkern. Holzkern is an Austrian jeweler that has physical locations in Austria, but you can also buy their jewelry online. The company sent over some samples here that are really freaking awesome. Holzkern's got rings, watches, bracelets, and necklaces, all for men and women. And the coolest thing of all is that they use natural materials for all of their products. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is a watch that is made of wood. And this beautiful little fella's name is Christoph Wenge and Tiger's Eye. And I don't think I need to tell you this, but it looks gorgeous. Not only that, but they make great gifts for your significant other, family members, or even yourself. I'm definitely going to be wearing my Holzkern stuff after this sponsorship, but especially the sunglasses. I think that they look especially awesome. And here's a little dumb gamer story for you. I actually wear these sunglasses while playing my Nintendo Switch at night because even on the lowest light setting, it's still a little too bright. And with these guys, I can actually read the screen still, but also help myself fall asleep while playing some video games. Silly, I know, but I'm a gamer, I'm a nerd. And always remember, even if you are nerdy, it doesn't hurt to look a little nice while doing it too. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to use my code SHESAYS to save 15% off of your site-wide purchase. You can also be rest assured that the customs and import fees are on Holzkern. Well, anyways, thank you so much to Holtzkern for being today's sponsor, and make sure you follow the link in the video description or the comment down below to see what they have in stock. I promise you, there's a little something for everybody, okay? Well, anyways, back to the show. And here's a bit of a weird one for you. Again, probably has everything to do with a programming standpoint, but this alarm item that is normally destroyed to disable security systems is hidden behind the geometry here during this scene when you're supposed to help out Murray. And now let's stay on the subject of character models and talk about Raleigh, the first level boss of Sly Cooper 1. There isn't a lot to say about this particular character, but if you take the camera inside of his eyeballs, you can see that he has 2 layers to his eyeballs. This is something that's going to keep up with the entire episode. Thematically, for whatever reason, there is some weird stuff going on with the character models and their eyes. And before we do a deep dive of the other characters, let's do a zoom out of one of the levels of the second area of the game. Now here is my personal favorite discovery of this whole entire episode. It is Murray's texture sheet hidden inside of Murray himself. And that's not the only example I ever found of texture sheets being hidden inside of models. On the back of all these slot machines, if you look at the back of them, you can see all of the slot machines in one cluster because they all share the same texture sheet. And then I just wanted to cover some things that I'm sure fans would want to know. Like, does Bentley have eyes? And no, he does not. And what about the other books? Do they have titles? Well, you can kind of make out some stuff, but clearly there's nothing that's meant to be actually seen, as the designer deliberately tried to cut off certain letters so that you can't read it legibly, and it's not even worth trying to read out what was actually written down. But just to go back, Bentley doesn't actually have any legs. Taking the camera underneath his desk will show you that he is also just a torso model. And then I wanted to take the camera inside the barrel while Sly was in it, and yeah, this was a mistake. I don't even know what to say here. I think the comment section is going to say it for me, so I'm going to try to be as professional as I possibly can. His back is arched as fully as humanly possible. It's very interesting because his feet are still very symmetrical with his neck and head. So the fact that his lower back is jettisoned out that far is it's very interesting and totally not worthy of commentary from somebody that's not trying to make jokes here. And then you got this enemy here who normally wears a hat, but if you hit him, his hat falls off, but he fades away so fast and the whole animation is so quick that you never really get to see what's underneath his hat. So taking the camera over on this frame when he's just about dead could show you all that this character has to bear. So naturally, I have to take the camera up to this developer hot dog, clearly, as this is one of 2 instances where a human face is injected into Sly Cooper. Who this is, I'm not entirely certain. It's possible that it's Ryuichi Hasegawa from the very special thanks credits, as these 2 images look somewhat similar to one another. So while we're on this racetrack, I wanted to show you some character models up close. Now, most of them are just enemies that you can find throughout this particular biome. So although their legs are missing and stuff just to fit inside the cars, it's not terribly exciting. But the thing that I found the most interesting is these mariachi dogs over here featuring sombreros and musical instruments. I don't think they're used anywhere else in the game. And since when you're racing, everything's moving around so quickly, you don't really get a great opportunity to see these character models up close. So I just wanted to take a moment, show them off to you. And now that you finally have seen the mariachi dogs up close, we can move on. So next up, I want to talk about the character models for the radio calls. I had a hard time with this one because initially you can't move the camera anywhere when you're using the radio calls. It just manipulates everything outside of the radio calls. But then when I found out when you activate the camera, for whatever reason, it does change the position of those models. And so at first I was able to get some instances of getting an idea of what these character models actually look like. But then I found out a huge game changer, which is that you could change the field of view, which then finally allowed me to see the radio model of Murray, which has his body cut off just like any other character, and his arms are sort of like in an A pose. And then if we remove HUD, you can see the character model in clear view. And one additional note I'll add here is that the Sly Cooper model uses the same in-game cutscene model that's used for certain scenes that we showed you earlier in this episode, which also means that in any given radio call, Sly Cooper is holding his cane, which is something you never ever get to see in any of the radio calls. And with that said, let's do another zoom out of another area of the game. Anyways, in this scene here, you got Bentley here trying to rescue Sly, and something interesting about it is that if you zoom the camera out, you could see that the background is just binary code being shifted around in different angles. This is something you might have been able to notice while playing the game, but with so much stuff in the way and obviously playing the game itself and demanding so much of the player, it might be sort of hard to notice these sort of details. Speaking of details that might be hard to notice, it's time to take the camera up to small creatures and see what they look like up close, like these rats here. When you take the time to notice, their legs are actually just nubbins, and their eyes have an orange glow to them. And then with these bees over here, they're actually super adorable. They have a little smile on their face and big bright eyes. Meanwhile, these crabs have a low poly look to them with big wide eyes that sort of give you the impression that there's not a lot going on upstairs. And then there's this inmate dog character, and something that I noticed is a little bit hard to see is that his teeth are actually made of gold. That or it's rotted, but given the gold chain around his neck, I'm gonna say that they're gold grills. And then let's talk about the PlayStation console that Murray's playing with. Taking the camera over onto the other side will show you that there's nothing going on with his screen, and that his PlayStation controller only seems to have analog sticks and no buttons. Also, there's a point in time where Murray is eating peanuts, and you could see the peanut going inside of his body and then quickly moving back into position so that Murray can pull more of the same peanut out of his bag. And then I want to talk about the cutscene that they use for the title screen of the game. It's very, very elaborate. It warps Sly all over this map, and it doesn't really have any consistency, so it takes a long time to find him in his various spots. I had to constantly freeze the game just to figure out where the model ended up. But one of the coolest things is that there's this first person part of the cutscene, and in order to pull that off, the entire model is just stripped away and only left with an arm, and looking at it from another angle is freaking hilarious. And then there's this level where you protect Murray, and then Sly just sort of drops down from this ladder here. Well, taking the camera out will show you that that ladder is connected to nothing. It's much, much longer than you would expect it to be, but sadly, on the end of things, it's just a floating ladder. And now I'll start talking about dev cubes. In this stage of all the lasers, if you take the camera outside of this hallway, you can see a dev cube that's clearly manipulating the lasers and even tilts in the same way that the lasers do. Once again, another laser room has a dev cube stored underneath. This one doesn't move though, but it's still my theory that it's tied to the lasers. But it's the hideout that has the most amount of stuff going on. Every single time you unlock a new chapter, the out of bounds dev cubes completely changes outside the map. With the first time you're in the hideout, all you see is this treasure chest dev cube and nothing else. But later on in the game, you can find 9 dev cubes with a weird texture on it that seems to resemble eyelashes. I could leave that one up to you, the audience, to figure this out. And then, like I said, as you unlock more levels in the game, dev cubes just sort of appear to whatever got added into the hideout. And that's all I got for now for Sly Coop. If you're watching this on a desktop, the join button really helps out. If you can become a member, it helps support the show. And there's gonna be all sorts of great perks, like, for example, the credits that you're seeing on the screen right now, as well as exclusive content. Also, Patreon is available if you're more comfortable with that. And if you're new here and you want to see some more PlayStation content, I'm going to throw something on the screen right now and in the video description. So I hope you take a look, and thank you so much for watching. Take care.